This is WAB's Week in Review, the show where we look back at the last few days of stories from your WAB News team. I'm Alex Helmick, managing editor of WAB News. And coming up on the show, the Atlanta VA Medical Center is at risk of losing more staff by this fall. The Department of Veterans Affairs recently announced it's on track to cut tens of thousands of its workforce. VA Secretary Doug Collins has said the changes will help improve veteran services, but VA nurses say they're worried more cuts will impact patients.
If I am passing out trays, going to find a urinal somewhere, escorting patients to radiology, I'm being taken away from the patient that I'm trying to take care of.
We'll have more on that story in just a few minutes. Now, though, affordable housing in Atlanta is a hot topic for anyone living and working in the city. And for a decade, the Fulton County Public Defender's Office and various nonprofits have been joining forces to help people recently released from jail with a place to land. As WAB's Shemaine Cruz reported, now the program faces a difficult path forward as federal funding dries up.
Charles Walsh plays a little bit of his bass guitar in a tiny room barely wide enough for his twin-sized bed and instruments. Photos of his Halloween-themed digital sculptures are spread out across his bed.
Sorry, nervous. But yeah, I'm actually learning from another man here named...
Walsh lives at Hope House, a 70-bed facility that supports adult men from across the state who have experienced homelessness and are in recovery from substance abuse. It's just blocks away from Atlanta City Hall, the Georgia Capitol, and the Fulton County Courthouse. Walsh says he ended up here after he started struggling with his mental health, then self-medicating with alcohol and acting out.
I had taken to a corner store where there were individuals who were hanging out behind it drinking alcohol and had formed friendships with them.
At some point, he says his condo was foreclosed.
Pretty much was like living a lifestyle that was like that of living on the streets.
Walsh was arrested and booked into jail, but while he was there, he asked for help with his mental health. That's when he was referred to Hope House.
There's been a complete emphasis on making sure that we understand each individual's needs rather than providing cookie-cutter services.
That's Carol Collard, president and CEO of CaringWorks, which partners with the United Way of Greater Atlanta and opened Hope House 20 years ago.
Many of our staff also have history of recovery, and while that in itself may not be unique, they combine that history with professional skill sets.
Collard describes it as their special sauce, and she says its Returning Citizens program has been successful, achieving a 65% graduation rate last year. In June, Fulton County Commissioners renewed a deal between the Public Defender's Office and the United Way of Greater Atlanta, allowing it to refer up to 10 clients for transitional housing and case management help through the end of the year. It cost the county $70,000, money that can then be subgranted to places like Hope House. But that was before the Trump administration started cutting grant funding, and Collard says they're bracing for an even deeper, permanent impact under the president's spending and tax bill.
Any cuts to that immediately reduces the number of folks that we are able to help, if not totally eliminating a program.
Collard says CaringWorks is looking to state and other local leaders to step in. She estimates $9 million, or more than 80% of its funding, is federally sourced.
I have to be honest, that is a very large void that the federal government would leave for other partners to fill.
According to Fulton's Public Defender's Office, it's hard to place clients with mental health or substance abuse issues in transitional or other housing. But programs like the one at Hope House are significantly cheaper than keeping someone in jail. Fulton's is under federal oversight for its overcrowded and inhumane conditions. Collard says all of this comes as the anticipation of the 2026 World Cup is squeezing Atlanta's already tight housing market in ways that could make shelter particularly scarce for homeless people and those with a criminal record. Charles Walsh plans to leave Hope House and transition into more independent living in February after 2 years at the facility. He says others in similar situations...
They need an opportunity like this. I'm going to be one of the proving kind. When I get out of this situation, I'm going to prove that that second chance was not wasted on me, that I'm going to do very good things with my life.
Walsh says he's focusing on finding ways to become a paid sculptor. Shameen Cruz, WABE News.
Veterans who get their health care at the VA say they're worried federal cuts will erode working conditions and quality of care, especially in Atlanta. Nurses say the Atlanta VA Medical Center already struggles with delays and understaffing. The Trump administration has announced it's on track to let go a total of 30,000 Department of Veterans Affairs employees nationwide by early fall. WAB health reporter Jess Mador had the story.
Settle down.
At home in Lithonia, veteran Tashara Felder gives her white, curly-haired dog a quick cuddle and hands him a toy to keep him busy at her feet.
He's such a brat. He's such a bratty brat. Rascal, settle down. Settle down.
Felder's hair is tied back with a colorful headscarf. She sits down at the dining room table with a fan blowing directly on her. She needs it all the time now, she says. Her body struggles to maintain a steady temperature. Felder, who's 46, has a brain tumor.
It's benign, but it's the danger of it being in your brain is that pressing on any part of the skull is going to cause symptoms.
Symptoms, surgery, and radiation in 2016 had eased, but are now back.
And in my case, it's the hot flashes and the vision problems, heart racing, and then short of breath.
Felder served 10 years in the Navy as a public health officer stationed around the world, and after September 11th, her unit embedded with the Marines on multiple combat deployments.
Twice to Iraq and then once to Afghanistan. We were forced health protection where we had to make sure that our troops were not exposed to anything, unclean water, had livable facilities.
But it put her in contact with contaminated air and water and hazardous materials the VA has linked to life-threatening conditions, including many cancers. Felders wondered if the exposures are related to her brain tumor. She's hoping for answers from VA specialists. She's still waiting.
I have to wait to see the neurologist, which is 4 months, and an endocrinology appointment I did get for September.
Felder's also a registered nurse at the VA. She says waits like hers are common. Also common are infrastructure breakdowns, staffing shortages, red tape, and unanswered veteran phone calls. Those are just some of the issues the Department of Veterans Affairs Office of Inspector General highlighted in a recent report. The office has directed the Atlanta VA to improve conditions. U.S. Veterans Affairs Secretary Doug Collins told Fox Business reducing bloat by tens of thousands of employees nationwide will improve healthcare and benefits.
What we have done is we've been able to use the attrition, use the deferred retirement plan to actually get us to our goal of making sure that we're more aligned with what we need to be doing, and that is taking care of veterans from day one.
You know, all the people that work with us, the dietitians, the physical therapists, the occupational therapists, the pharmacy techs, the housekeeping staff, all of those people are on the chopping block.
Registered nurse Irma Westmoreland has worked more than 3 decades at the Augusta VA Medical Center and leads her VA Nurses Union.
If I am passing out trays, going to find a urinal somewhere, escorting patients to radiology, I'm being taken away from the patient that I'm trying to take care of.
And Westmoreland says more federal cuts mean more delays for veterans waiting for doctor's appointments, like Tashara Felder in Lithonia. Felder says the VA does need improvement. She points to its slow hiring process that left it understaffed even before Trump's second term.
COVID came and interrupted a lot of things, but we saw the writing on the wall before COVID. It took me over 4 months to actually start working. Others took a year or more. So that's a higher up problem.
For now, Felder's focused on getting answers about her deteriorating health.
You know, it's scary because I can't go on through life with these symptoms or with this happening.
And she's applied for coverage under the PACT Act. The 3-year-old program expanded benefits for veterans exposed to toxins, benefits veterans advocates hope survive the Trump administration's cuts. Jess Mador, WABE News.
You're listening to WAB's Week in Review with me, Alex Helmick. You can find more at wabe.org. Well, a variety of industries in Georgia, from construction to tech, report they're struggling to find skilled workers. WAB's Christopher Alston had more on a new trade school helping to bridge the gap between education and labor.
The U.S. Chamber of Commerce says there's only about 74 workers for every 100 jobs in Georgia.
Brian Termale is with the Associated General Contractors of America.
76% of contractors in Georgia say they're having a hard time finding enough workers to keep pace with demand.
He says the solution is simple.
Obviously, we need to boost investments in career and technical education.
Workforce Career Center's new campus opening this weekend in West Midtown is designed to meet that demand. It will offer 4 to 12-week courses in construction, tech, culinary fields, film production, and more. The school's CEO, Marion Skinner, shows off the facility's construction lab.
So on this side, this is where the electricians come. They run their wires. We'll also be working on HVAC in here as well. And then you can also tell how to frame.
And a fully outfitted kitchen for culinary students.
So the students will be able to come in here, of course, do some cooking. But I tell everybody, this is 20% cooking, 80% business.
Skinner says state workforce development programs and potential employers will cover most student costs. Employer partners include big names like Grady Health and Microsoft. Earlier this month, Microsoft President Brad Smith announced the company plans to invest $4 billion in AI training by 2030.
And just over the next 2 years, our goal will be to train, as you'll hear, more than 20 million people.
The program's Workforce Career Centers focuses on fall under the state's high-demand career list, which was created by state law last year to coordinate efforts between educators, state agencies, and employers. Christopher Alston, WABE News. We end the show today with a remembrance of Tom Cousins, real estate developer and philanthropist who died this week at 93. Cousins helped transform the landscape of Metro Atlanta, but is perhaps best known for helping reimagine the East Lake Meadows public housing complex. Here's WAB's Sam Greenglass.
Tom Cousins built a real estate empire in Atlanta. By the early 1960s, he was the largest home builder in Georgia. Later, he developed towers that shaped the Atlanta skyline and brought the Atlanta Hawks to town. But as Cousins acknowledged at a forum in 2013, it was his role in transforming a struggling public housing complex into a thriving mixed-income community that became his signature achievement.
We were going to basically fund the unfundable, and we were going to try to get some solutions to these problems.
The problem was a sprawling one.
Public housing started in Atlanta in 1935.
Carol Naughton is a former lawyer at the Atlanta Housing Authority.
We built more public housing in Atlanta per capita than I think any other city in the country, and in large part because it was built in a segregated manner.
By the 90s, Naughton says Atlanta's public housing was deteriorating.
Housing units were dilapidated, people weren't thriving, and in Atlanta, certainly in the East Lake neighborhood, it had become a very hard place to live.
The apartments were old, and the city had let them fall into disrepair. The community was notorious for crime and plagued by poverty. Around this time, a new way of thinking about public housing was emerging, and Tom Cousins was among the first to embrace it, as described in a local news report at the time.
The housing project will be torn down and completely rebuilt as a mixed-income development. The first phase should be complete by the time the Olympics get underway in 1996.
Rather than isolating the poor in a housing complex without easy access to good schools and jobs, the new East Lake would have a charter school, a grocery store, a YMCA. It would be developed through a public-private partnership. Cousins also bought the historic East Lake golf course nearby, intending its restoration to spur revitalization in the neighborhood around it.
This would not have worked if we'd just gone and built some nice new apartments. It is what we call a holistic approach. What was wrong with the urban renewal, we just picked people up and put them over here. And we didn't change the environment.
East Lake has largely been heralded as a success story, but it has been criticized for displacing the most vulnerable residents, people with criminal records or substance abuse problems who had nowhere else to go. And Atlanta still struggles to house its lowest income residents. But Cousins says he was driven by a deep belief in creating opportunity for all Atlantans.
These children had no choice where they're born. It could have been any one of you. We all could have been born in a circumstance like that.
The strategy piloted in East Lake has popped up in many other states, spurred by a foundation Cousins co-founded called Purpose-Built Communities. Carol Naughton, the former housing authority lawyer, is now CEO.
I think Tom Cousins is a uniquely quintessential Atlanta icon. the way that manifests itself is in this blend of optimism and possibility, and that we can aspire to great things. And I think that's part of Atlanta's DNA.
Former Atlanta Mayor Shirley Franklin says Cousins' life, in a way, helps tell the story of Atlanta in the second half of the 20th century.
What was defined at that time as the New South, built on the successes of the South, but acknowledged the racial gaps and was prepared to do things to accelerate the success of the whole city, but especially the success of those people who have been left out for, hundreds of years.
While Atlanta is sometimes criticized for its cozy relationship with corporations, Franklin says these partnerships between business, philanthropy, and government have helped the city do big things.
The vast majority of his work has moved the city and the region ahead by leaps and bounds, in and out of recessions, in and out of racial tension. Tom Cousins is one of the most significant persons in the development of modern-day Atlanta.
Sam Greenglass, WABE News.
And that's all for the show this week. My thanks to the WABE News team for all the great work. I'm Alex Helmick. Thank you for supporting WABE and for listening to The Week in Review.